This is a video illustrating or examining, shall I say, the difference between a drill and music. Music is an elusive type of thing. It's abstract. It concerns feelings, character, emotion, sounds that are communicated as something. And they're really not describable except in abstract terms. You know, oh, that sounds mysterious, or that sounds joyful, or that's jazzy. Jazzy, what is jazz? Jazzy, well, jazzy is something that makes sometimes the straightness of classics come alive with different rhythms. Straight classic. Jazzy, jazz. You can't explain it any other way. Why does that sound more interesting than the straight? Well, the straight is something we've heard a lot of before in any composition, you know. It's just straight. It's 1, 2, 3, 4. Now, drills. We have drills as far as the major scale is concerned, with whole step, half step, whole step. We've gone through this before. If you haven't, then you need to go back and review the video on the major scale. Because the major scale is the mother of all of our music. It defines all of our intervals, our chords, just about everything. If you have any question about what you have, you go to the major scale, which is mother, and mother will show you what the interval or the chord is. And I don't want to go into that now because that's all been explained before. But I just started that wrong. Let's do it in half notes, or at least in eighth note. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4, and do it 4 times. 1, 2, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. And so on. The point to this drill, we're not concerned with music right now, but the point to this drill is you can get from one major scale to another major scale, but your choice is right at the end of the 4 times through a major scale. Doing it 4 times, number 1, strengthens up the fingering, gets it used to that particular major scale. Everything has a particular feel to it because of sometimes the black note. That has a completely different feel than this. Or this. Completely different tactile feel. It must be worked on, must be approached, and you must be able to go from one major scale on any white note to any major scale on any black note at the time, or making the choice at the time you finish 4 times through any major scale. 4 times, that's just an arbitrary number. I don't care what you do. You can make it more than that, less than that, I don't really care. But the point is getting to the next major scale and making that choice at the end, not planning it. Because when you plan it, it's not improvisation, but when you do it at the time, that's improvisation. It's only a little tiny bit of improvisation, but improvisation is choices. Okay, now, when we've taken a little melody, and we've chosen Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star, we've chosen Silent Night, we've chosen some of the really basic pieces. You know, Happy Birthday, My Country 'Tis of Thee, you know, America the Beautiful. Those songs which are relatively simple so that we can do something with them, so we can practice the language of music with these songs. Now, taking the Twinkle Twinkle Little Star, well, that's fine, but it's only one single note, and when you play that, and if that's all you can play, you don't have much choice. Therefore, you can't do much improvisation except maybe rhythmically. Or adding some of the black keys. That type of thing. But still, you're working with single notes, and that kind of thing is very valuable, and you can go back and review that also. That can also be a drill, or it can be music. If it's just a drill, it's just notes. If it's music, it means something. And just by the mere fact that you're changing the rhythm and sometimes adding the chromatic tones, now in the key of C, your chromatic tones are basically the black keys. But in the key of F sharp major, for example, then your chromatic tones are some of the white keys. So on, okay. Now, the real purpose of this particular video is creating something that makes more sound. Gives something more than just a feeling of a beginner playing pieces. Okay, let's talk about a drill right now. Okay, this particular arrangement, shall we say, where you have a third here, 1, 2, 3, and a fourth here, 1, 2, 3, 4. It's certainly an interesting harmonization of the C major scale. It's very attractive, as opposed to, that's nice, but how many times we've heard that? Mozart does that frequently. He's the scale man. He's got scales everywhere. But he's got an awful lot of music also, so don't discount Mozart. He's got it all. Okay. This particular sound, though, this particular sound is a major sound, because basically C to E, let's put the E up higher. A whole step and a whole step makes a major third. Put an E in the bottom, doesn't matter where you put the E, it's still a major third of C, because your root is on top. The root is the basic note of the chord. You can't call this a G chord because G is G, B, D. You can't call it an E chord because an E chord is E, G, B. But on the other hand, you can. And I'll explain that in just a moment. But for right now, you've got a different sound all the way through this. Now if you take the upper note as your melody, or your scale note in this case, then B, D, F is diminished, it's not major. A is your basic note, whole step, half step to C. It's a minor third. So each one of these arrangements has a different sound to them. You better listen to them. You better get acquainted with them, excuse me. But do something than just simply play the scale. That's meaningless. Okay. Now, play the scale up and down. Remember, your little finger has the root. Then you put the other two notes, C, E, G, put the E and G in the bottom. And that makes up your third. And then 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, do that in the key of F. Now the key of F, going back to the major scale, mother, whole step, half step, whole step. Okay, there's your major scale. Now play that arrangement from F. Now, if you know enough about your intervals, find out what the chord is. Is it major, minor, or diminished? Now, we've got a drill to take care of that. It's the triad drill. And if you haven't gone through the triad drill, we need to do that. We take the major scale, then the major triad, then the minor triad, then the diminished triad. You see, everything comes from the basic major scale. Then you start altering it, minor, and then minor to diminished. And triads mean you're skipping notes. Skip D, skip F. You're still skipping D and skipping F. You're still skipping D and skipping F because that's going to be a G flat. Okay. Key of G. Key of G. Now that's the first 5 notes of the G major scale, which has no black keys. But if you take the whole major scale, 1, 2, 3, 4, start on 5, then you go whole step, half step, which is the same arrangement, the same order as the first 4 notes. Whole step, half step. Now from the 5th note of the scale, whole step, half. So you do them together, whole step, and then half step. Okay? Well, there's your F sharp. So the key of G. Those are the basic keys. You've got key of C major, no sharps or flats, key of F, 1 flat, key of G major, the 1 sharp, the F sharp. Take it to the keys, but at least take it to these, play this particular arrangement in these 3 keys. Transposition is also an absolute necessity for learning the language of music. Okay, now we take Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star. Okay. Now, that sounds maybe a little bit more interesting than just single notes. You've got more notes there, and you've got different qualities, or identities, should I say, of chords going from one chord to another. That's, as I mentioned, that's basically C major, because if you put the E on top or the C on the bottom, you have from C to E is a major third, 2 steps. C, D, E, major third. Okay, G on the bottom, whole step, major, that's a major triad. Now then, this one, put A in the bottom, whole step, half step, that's a minor third, that's a minor triad. There's your major. Did you see the tremendous difference there in the sound? Minor to major. Work with these things, explore them, do things. In exploring, you are improvising. You're not going by some script, you're not going by some theory manual which gives you information without exploring what you're doing. If you got G major, 1 whole step, half step would be minor. Again, the difference in the quality of the sound is enormous. That's very rich, dark sound, I think you might express. That's a more open sound, a more comfortable sound, maybe. You know, I say maybe because that depends upon how you use it. But this kind of thing you can work with and understand the intervals and whether the triad is a major or a minor triad or a diminished triad, as in the case of this one, the 7th note of the C major scale. Diminished. Put the B on the bottom, you've got a whole step to a half step is a minor third, and here a whole step to a half step, whole step, half step is another minor third, which means you've got there's your normal 5th from the B major scale, by the way. You've got the diminished. There's your minor, there's your major. there again, work with these things so that you can hear the difference in the quality of these sounds. They're just enormous. But for the classical pianist who's never had to do this, who's never had to explore these things, one sound is the same thing as another sound. It's sort of like going to a cooking school and you can't tell the difference between, I don't know, I'm not a cook, but a red sauce and a white sauce or something like that. I don't know what. But you've got to taste these things. Or being a, what do they call it, a sommelier, and there's a wine person. A wine person can tell exactly what wine is. Maybe where it comes from, what year it is, I don't know. But anyway, there's a sensitivity to these things, either taste or to even smell. A wine expert smells the wine. Now, as far as music is concerned, the average musician couldn't tell the difference between major and minor. And really, sometimes doesn't even care so long as they're playing the right notes. And notes do not make music. This is something to be explored quite thoroughly. Okay, now I'm going to end this video because this alone is so vital as to be not mixed with something else or gone on to something else. Now, another thing I might mention before we go on to another video, and I'll make these videos as frequent as possible so we can get the idea of what I'm talking about and what the language of music is versus what is simply a drill. What I'm talking about is to do something until you have a cognition. Now, what do I mean by that? All right. Well, I might have mentioned it in some other video. I don't know if I did or not. But I had a beginning student doing whole steps, then half steps with just these two fingers. There's a video on this, by the way. And I said, well, why don't you go from here to here? Because this can make a musical phrase, a musical sentence. A sentence must have a beginning and an end. A story must have a beginning and an end. With a sentence, you've got a sentence which starts off with an object, it goes through a verb into an object. Or with all sorts of other words like adjectives and adverbs and so on and so forth. But it must have some kind of direction. So we choose this. And we did something like that. We did it with two fingers actually. And we did it in a musical way. Now if we do it in a drill way, meaningless. But if we do it with some kind of dropping the voice at the very end, then it can have a more of a musical sense to it. And that distance there, I said to this beginning student, I said, yeah, that sort of sounds a little mysterious, doesn't it? She said, yeah, that does. Well, mysterious? Well, that's just an abstract term. Spooky? Well, maybe. Or just its quality. It has a different quality than just... Oh, that's just the end of a sentence. But somehow that which we did from F to B sounded very mysterious. Okay. Oh, by the way. Yeah, the joy to the world. You can take pieces and experiment with this arrangement. A third, it doesn't have to be a major third, it could be a minor third. C to E is a major third, 2 steps. A to C is a minor third, a step and a half. Major third, minor third. Done. Okay. So these things you can apply to pieces. You might say, oh, I don't particularly like that. All right? How about playing something? Now, that's a pretty sound. Well, what is this sound? 1, 3, 5, 7, 9. You get much more of a modern sound out of it, and I think that's what we're all working toward, instead of the old-fashioned classical sound of 100 or 200 years ago. We get tired of that. Anyway, I think that's the end of our video, because I want you to work these things in the key of C and in the key of F. Improvise a little bit on it, and then the key of G. Have fun with it. We'll talk later.